Gassi of Corriere della Sera Italy. The question to the writer and the director. I am very interested about the religion in the movie. The religion doesn't give food to the souls. It's a different form of spirituality that gives something. Can you tell me something about the script and you as a director?
Well, I was interested in looking at a God that's perhaps not just an Old Testament God, but that might include destruction. And that idea with people that in our country have a Christian true religion, but then how do they encompass a God that's larger than that in some ways? And so that was a lot of the early ideas behind the script and what it looks for. Because for me, it's these four characters who are all imprisoned in some way, and their souls are struggling to get out. And when you look at things in a larger context than just a religion, that's interesting to me. I mean, we filter everything, in this country particularly, we filter a lot through religion, and all over the world now, I mean, we're just looking through religion. But when you try to look at something that's grander in a human way, that's fascinating through these four characters and what happens to them. Joe?
Yeah, I probably would echo a lot of that. I think that for me, I grew up in a very religious, conservative household, so there was something about this character that I immediately recognized, the idea of a guy who is internally sort of crumbling, in the absence of faith, or in a crisis of faith, in that vacuum, what happens, and I think that was sort of the idea that I wasn't really interested in making a firm comment on God, or, I was interested in the notions of sin and redemption, a lot of the themes that are obviously driving the film. But I think the point was to give each idea, an equal setting at the table without kind of forcing one point of view through it. Because what answer can you possibly give when you're talking about God? It's arrogant to think that there's some way to wrap it up with neat closure, which may or may not be the frustrating aspect of the film. But it was very much a character thing for me, where in Jack, I recognized somebody, living his life in a certain way, and I was interested in seeing what happens when in that vacuum.
Sir?
Mohit Rajan's Metro Morning. Ed, your character all the characters go through a lot of transformation on screen, but your character goes through more physical transformation. When you're wearing the cornrows and then your hair was growing out and stuff, was it your hair that you would actually pull back? And what part in the movie, or when your character was evolving, did you feel you identified with the most as a person?
The cornrows were real. They're difficult to fake. We found a great... we looked for a Hollywood hairstylist who knew how to do rows, but there weren't any. So I went to downtown Detroit and found a lady named Crystal who does a nice, clean set of rows. And Crystal did me up. Gave me my do-rag and my mousse, and that's how I maintained my cornrows. I don't relate that often to the idea of what I don't. A lot of people ask, like, what do you pull on in your own life from a character, and it's just, in all honesty, it's not something that really works that way for me. I tend to look at these things as an imaginative process and a challenge of imagination and empathy to some degree. Like, I get much more out of meeting people who have really lived these lives than I do digging around in my own, limited experiences, and I think the most I could say is that I definitely thought the idea was very interesting, that a person who's struggling or having a lot of anguish about his condition might have a radical shift in perspective, or a kind of enlightening, an experience of sudden enlightenment through an experience, as opposed to a specific spiritual practice or a religion, a formal religion that he would have an experience, a revelatory experience, even just by witnessing something. Because I think that was something I related to, the idea of a transformative experience. And I really like John really came up with that moment in the film. He showed me a documentary about a prison. It was a problem I had in the script. Understanding, what causes this? If we're to believe this was authentic in him, what's the moment that it happens? And John had this fantastic idea, I thought, which was he'd seen a documentary about a prison in which there had been a murder, and in the actual footage from the security camera, you could see that as the murder was taking place, there was a man in a holding cell behind the bars within inches, and that he dropped to the floor and was staring through the bars at this man who was being killed. And John said, don't you think that would be a great moment to create in the film, where Stone has this experience that becomes this moment of enlightenment for him. And I love that. I love the idea of activating a spiritual transformation that way, and so I think that answers it.
Gentleman here, the lady here, and the lady here, and then the gentleman. Go ahead, sir.
Hi, my name is Liam Cullen from EmpireMovies.com. My question is for Mr. De Niro. I'm just wondering, it's been a few years since you've directed a film. Are you still learning things as a filmmaker? I realize you're still growing and evolving as an actor, but as a filmmaker, are you still on the lookout for tips and tricks on how to
give a lot of tips.
And same for Mr. Norton. It's been a while since you've directed a film. Do you have anything in the future that you'd like to work on?
I have a few things I want to do. I only see myself doing, at the most, 3 more movies. And one of them would be a sequel to The Good Shepherd, and maybe even a third part. I don't know. You always learn something in movies, directing or acting. There's always something new. Even if it's a technological thing, there's always something to, of course, learn. So,
Mr. Norton?
I agree. I mean, on a technical level, things are constantly changing. It's every film I work on, I feel like there's a new set of interesting little pieces of gear. There's things that are making filmmaking easier and easier and easier. Not creatively easier, but it's getting pretty exciting. The degree to which you can, now you can take a Canon SLR camera and your laptop and go shoot a pretty sophisticated looking film. So I definitely feel drawn toward the expanding possibilities in ways to make a story, but I don't have any immediate plans to do that. And but I definitely agree with what Bob said. I think that every single film, my favorite part about it is that you get to. It's like having a skeleton key, and you get let into every room, and you learn extraordinary things, like things you would never have any reason to investigate or any opportunity to investigate. I mean, to me, like just the couple weeks that I got to sit around in this prison talking to guys who are incarcerated is like a revelation. I mean, it's this hugely memorable experience. So I love that. I love that part of it every time.